Today we're going to talk about some weird shit that I do and think about thanks to anxiety. So I've been wanting to create a video for a long time explaining to you guys what exactly my anxiety looks like on a day-to-day basis, what the really bad times look like, what the really good times look like. And I just have never been able to bring myself to make the video because it feels too serious and cold. And so I had this idea last week to kind of explain some things that I think about and do regularly because of my anxiety. We're gonna get sarcastic, we're gonna get dark, but this is really meant to be both a humor video and a way to show you that you are not alone and maybe we connect on some of these symptoms. Basically, the gist of it is it feels like inside my mind there are two brains constantly battling it out. One is like super logical and one thinks it's gonna die all the time and that I should just give up. And they're just constantly going at it. Even though I am very capable of having logical thought patterns, there are many occasions when the anxious side just completely swallows up the logical side and nothing gets done. And that's what we're gonna talk about today. Welcome to #ThanksAnxiety. I check my bag before I leave the house like anyone else, phone, keys, wallet, and then I close my front door and I check my bag again. Then I get in my car and I check my bag again. And then I arrive at my destination and I check my bag again. And if I sit down at a restaurant, I check my bag when I first sit down, I check it before I get up. It's really ridiculous. It's just that I'm constantly worrying that the worst is gonna happen, and so I'm constantly preparing for the worst. And so I end up checking my handbag about a bajillion times every single time that I leave the house. Thanks, anxiety. When I am home alone and it's dark, I get irrationally terrified of every single noise, whether it's inside or outside. If it's a simple closing of a car door, there's a cat in my backyard, I will lose my Basically, any of those sounds make me feel like I'm about to be murdered on the spot, or kidnapped, or the house is gonna be set on fire. Basically, I'm constantly looking behind my back, making sure that no one's gonna sneak up on me. And then I am constantly avoiding looking outside because I hear all these noises out there and I'm like, none of that could be good. I'm probably safest if I just stay in the house and I don't look at anything, because if I don't look at it, it doesn't exist. Yeah. Thanks, anxiety. What I do the most, above all else, thanks to my anxiety, is overthink everything. And a lot of times it ends up being the negative and fear-driven ideas that I'm overthinking. So, for example, this morning, Abe was limping a lot. Abe is my dog, and he got surgery about 6 weeks ago. We took him on a walk yesterday, a longer one in the woods. And so he was limping really hard this morning. And my first thought was, I screwed up. I shouldn't have taken him on that walk in the woods. He probably re-hurt his legs and we have to do the surgery all over again. And I couldn't get it out of my head. I was walking a client's dogs this morning, and on the walk, the logical side of my brain is well, the worst thing that could happen is Abe really did hurt his leg again and he needs surgery again. But, at least you have pet insurance, it's not gonna be too expensive. It is a lot of time and commitment, unfortunately, so that would suck really bad. But, in general, my family's in good health. And then the anxious side is no, you messed up. This is the worst thing that could ever happen. Abe is gonna die. When you are constantly thinking it and overthinking and overthinking, nothing really good is gonna come out of that. So that tends to be where my head ends up, in the worst place possible. Thanks, anxiety. The next one is pretty much the exact opposite, which is that sometimes I have trouble thinking at all. And I know that sounds they sound like some kind of dummy when I say that, but it's just that when it really gets down to it and I'm trying to focus on one thing, say I'm trying to brainstorm video ideas. I sit down on the couch, I've been thinking about this all day and I had a couple ideas that, okay, gotta make sure to write that down. I sit down with the pen and literally nothing is in my head. It's like I'm meditating. And I go, focus right now. Okay, well, let's start thinking right now. And basically, I just can't think. I don't know. I can't focus on one idea for some reason. So thanks, anxiety, for that one. Every time I get sick, or I have a weird rash, or I feel sore in my knees, or, some weird medical thing is going on, it's just really small, my brain will blow that thing up into a deadly disease. My brain can turn the simplest of scratches into immediate death. I've actually been banned from going on WebMD. Not officially, just by my husband. I'm kind of a hypochondriac. Thanks, anxiety. I sweat a lot. I get like cold, clammy hands. I'll feel like my pit's sweating through and on my back, and I'll feel myself like swaying and kind of like getting nervous. Basically, I look suspicious every time I go to the airport, and it's just because I'm irrationally nervous. Thanks, anxiety. One of life's biggest problems for me has just been the simple act of making a decision. And it's not even big decisions, not like which college should I go to, what city should I live in. Those are like the easiest decisions for me. The hard decisions are like, I'm at the corner market and I'm gonna get myself a nice beer tonight, and which one should I pick? Basically, I look at the beer labels and I'll read all of them, and I'll try to decide and put myself in that scenario, like, how will I feel if I'm drinking this beer? It's because for some reason I'm worried I'm gonna make a bad decision, and then that bad decision will just ruminate in my brain over and over, like, you can't make a decision, you're terrible at making decisions, you shouldn't even try anymore. I'm standing in the beer aisle and I just read all the labels in detail, and then all of a sudden they're all jumbled together in one big mush, and I get overwhelmed and I'm completely paralyzed and I can't make a decision. Thanks, anxiety. Sometimes I get myself into some weird panic modes and I'll Google things like how to make a decision. Thanks, anxiety. If the anxious side of my brain is winning and something scary is going on or new is going on, it's a life transition period, whatever, the anxious brain swallows the logical brain. So the logical brain can't even function anymore, and it's just this big anxious brain. If that's happening, it generally will result in a full-on breakdown. That means I get really shaky, I get really sweaty, I start to worry about everything, like even more so than normal. Sometimes I'll get a headache, I'll usually cry, and then every single bad thing that I've ever thought of the last like month will all come spewing out of my mouth, and then my husband's like, what this big anxious side of my brain just like extract everything all at once, like abort mission, abort everything, get rid of all of it, and then just bleh, just like word vomit coming out of my mouth, and it's just a full breakdown. The day after that tends to be a pretty good day though. It's a cleansing experience, so thanks, anxiety. This is the one I really don't want to share with you guys but I'm gonna do it because I love my fearless fam. So when I was a kid, how do I do this? I had this poster of like a puppy with some hearts on it. I don't know, some stupid poster. That's not even the embarrassing part of the story, because what kid didn't have a poster of a puppy above their bed? I slept in the top bunk, my little brother slept on the bottom bunk, and my mom would come in the room and, give us a kiss at night and would say, "Good night, Mom." And I had this like routine that I went through in my head, and I don't know why, but I would say, "Good night, love you, sweet dreams, see you in the morning." 4 things. And I was convinced that if I didn't say one of these things one evening, that something horrible was gonna happen to me, my mom, my family, because of me. After I would say goodnight and my mom would leave the room, I would go over it in my head and say, did I say goodnight? Did I say I love you? Did I say sweet dreams? Which one did I forget? And if I was convinced that I had forgotten one or more of them, this is what I would do. I would pull the thumbtack out of the side of the poster, and into the corner of the poster, I would etch whatever letters I had forgotten to say. So, good night, GN, love you, LY, and I'd be freaking taking a sharp thumbtack and I am etching letters into my poster so that in the morning I can wake up and say, "Mom, I forgot to say sweet dreams to you last night." And I would literally do this, and I don't know that I did this enough times to really like disturb her, but she was probably like, okay, you don't have to say sweet dreams to me every night, that's fine. But yeah, that's something weird I used to do. Because thanks, anxiety. Whenever I have a big task to do and I finally complete it, and I have that last thing, the last piece of the puzzle that completes it, and I see the full picture and I'm proud of my accomplishments, and it was like a 50-step process to get here, like for instance getting medical insurance. Finally got my insurance card in the mail, and literally does not matter. I never feel completely done with big projects, and it's because I am overthinking everything. If part of the steps were sending an email, I'm like, I know it says it's in my outbox, but I think Gmail might be lying. I don't think it actually sent that email. I will find something that I believe to have gone wrong or been done badly enough for me to have that successful accomplishment like revoked in some way. So even when a big task is done, it's never really done, thanks to anxiety. I play with my hair a lot. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, probably, and I apologize. Thanks, anxiety. Sometimes when I'm very stressed out, my eye will start twitching. It's not one eye in particular, it's just one of the eyes will just like twitch. And it's the most annoying thing in the world, and I cannot stand it. Thanks, anxiety. If I'm hanging out with my husband or a friend who has a similar like mentality to my husband, who, in case you don't know, is very laid back, pretty like reserved. He doesn't emote very much. He's not like me where if I'm excited, I'm like, oh my God. And if if I'm depressed, I'm like sobbing on the floor. I have like these peaks and valleys, and my husband's like pretty stable. For some reason, my anxious brain cannot process people like that, even though I'm married to one. And sometimes if I'm feeling very anxious, I will be absolutely convinced that my husband, or, you know, whichever laid back friend I'm hanging out with at the time, I'll be convinced that I'm dragging them into something that they don't want to be doing, or they're upset, or they're mad at me. And it's because they just aren't showing as much emotion as I would be in that scenario. Thanks, anxiety. When I hang out in my backyard with my dog, I tend to be really quiet, and sometimes I'll even like walk quietly, talk quietly to the dog. And it's because I am afraid of my neighbors hearing me in my backyard. It's my backyard. I'm supposed to use my backyard, so why is that something I would avoid? But I have no explanation. So thanks, anxiety. This is probably the darkest out of all the 20 things, but it's the thing I've been dealing with for the longest amount of time. Since I was a little kid, I remember dreaming up these like gory visuals. I still do it today, but I'm much better at handling the situation and understanding why it's happening. As a kid, I was like, I'm messed up. I'm crazy. Like something weird is happening and they're gonna put me in a crazy home. They haven't told me I'm crazy yet. But no, basically I would just have intense worry and fear, and it would translate in my brain as like dreaming up these gory scenarios. So getting in a car accident and like having it be a really bad one with like a semi truck. I just tried to think of some more examples, and you know what? I'm just gonna leave it at gory visuals because I don't need to get too gory in my descriptions. I think you get the idea. Basically, I see something that could have happened or could happen in the future, like falling off a bridge or getting hit by a car or catching the house on fire on accident and then my dog dies inside the fire. Like that kind of thing. It's like really ultra gory, depressing, sad thoughts. And it's not even because I'm sad or depressed in that moment. It's just this like visualization of my own worry and fear. So it's not something I struggle with anymore, and I hope that you guys know that you're not alone if you deal with this too, but it's definitely still the most disturbing thing that happens because of anxiety. So thanks, anxiety. Every time I have to make a phone call, I stress about it really bad. Like simple phone calls. And I'm a social person, so it doesn't make any sense. It's doubled if it's a response to something. So if I get something in the mail or an email or a phone call and I leave it unresponded to and I don't tackle it right away, that thing will bubble up inside me and I will be stressed about that until it's done. Thanks, anxiety. I am constantly lowering my expectations. So thanks, anxiety. When I'm driving, I'm always worried that I'm going to do something wrong and inconvenience somebody or cut somebody off or do something, you know, like wrong on the road in general. And so since I'm constantly worried about doing that myself, if someone else makes a mistake on the road and they cut me off or inconvenience me, I get super ragey, like super fast. I'm going to like beat myself up about it if I do something wrong. So I'm ready to beat up whoever does something wrong. And it's just not a healthy way to think about things. So thanks a lot, anxiety. Lastly, every single doctor and nurse and whoever has taken my blood pressure in the last 10 years has told me I have high blood pressure, except the doctor that I'm most comfortable with. The problem is that I suffer from white coat syndrome, which is a fancy way of saying that I'm afraid of doctor's offices and that sterile environment. Because my anxiety is already peaking in that moment, when I get in that one-on-one scenario where it's quiet in the sterile room and I'm sitting on like the paper on top of the cushiony thingy and they're taking my blood pressure, all I can think about in that moment is take breaths, be calm, think of calming things, and then that makes me more anxious, and then it always makes my blood pressure read super high. And it's all thanks to my anxiety. If there is anything that you do because of your anxiety that you think is completely ridiculous or weird or funny even, go on social media and share it with the hashtag #ThanksAnxiety. I think it'd be super fun to connect in this way, kind of poke fun at our own weirdnesses and at the same time feel like we're part of a bigger community. Now, I totally understand if you don't want to share this on any of your like main social media accounts. So what I recommend for you is to join the new Fearless Fam group. It's basically a closed Facebook group, so it's a safe space where we can connect and we can have discussions about anxiety. We can talk openly about it, not feel judged. It's a really like awesome place where I feel like our community has kind of come together and is able to share things in the moment. So when you're really needing something, you know, if you're really needing some interaction, some validation, some advice, anything, you can post it on the group. I love it. And I love that you guys want to be a part of it too. Our group is now up to, I think, 41 members. Woo! Thanks for watching today, guys, and stay tuned tomorrow for a really fun Travel Talk Tuesday topic We're talking about food that we discovered on our travels, and you know how much I like food, you know how much I like traveling. I'm excited to explain some of my favorite dishes to you that I have never talked about before. Thanks for watching. Okay, bye!